Well, that was a good dry one. Welcome to the Grid Podcast, episode number 5. Our goal is to educate and to bring hard-hitting truths about America's critical infrastructure. I'm your host, Maria Sumnicht, and I'll also be the guest today. We had Joe Weiss scheduled, but he had a scheduling conflict last minute. But he said he will be on next week, and he promises. So that ought to be a great show. Do not miss that for anything. So we have a political disclaimer. So all opinions expressed in the podcast by participants, including myself,
are their own opinions and not necessarily that of the Grid podcast. Additionally, the Grid podcast does not endorse or assure accuracy of information presented. We invite you to please do your own research into these topics. With that said, please hit subscribe, like, and the notification bell so you can be notified when we go live. And so today we're going to be discussing the need to secure the Internet of Things in America's largest cities, how IoT was secured on a massive scale in New York City. So today I will share my experiences at New York City Cyber Command, where we proactively secured the Internet of Things and as well as industrial control systems on a massive scale. So a little bit about me. When I was at New York City Cyber Command, I was the urban technology architect. And what we were was a brand new agency. We were founded in 2017, and I came aboard right at the end of 2018. There were still maybe 30 people, max 50 at the time in the agency. They were hiring, and it was an absolutely great time to be on the ground floor of such a noble effort to help secure America's largest city against cyber attacks. So with that, I'm going to actually go through a presentation that I gave back in March of this year, 2025, to the United States Secret Service and the Denver Police Department here in Colorado. And they were interested in what was done in New York City, how we secured IoT on a massive scale, and they wanted to know about the unknown enemy within. And let me tell you, if you're not vetting your IoT prior to its deployment, you have a lot of enemies within. So I'll be presenting that today because I think it's needed. To date, I believe New York City still is the only city in America with its own cyber command. Granted, it is America's largest city, but there's other large cities as well, like Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, that also should be embarking on such an endeavor to better secure their cities against cyber attacks and to protect the residents. So, who am I? And well, why did they invite me? These two wonderful agencies, the United States Secret Service and the Denver Police Department, to give this talk. I have been in cybersecurity for many years, and am known as a industry leader. I was again the former urban technology architect for the City of New York Cyber Command. I worked at NASA, and I was a computer scientist, administrator, and network engineer. I co-founded a company called Surveillance Grid, a smart city physical security and wireless networking company. I worked at Cisco Systems for many years in the network management business unit, the wireless business unit, did projects for InfoSec, was a database designer. I actually designed helped Cisco design and procure and launch the very probably enterprise-wide knowledge-based system. And I worked in corporate quality as well. Prior to that, I worked at Lockheed Missiles and Space Corporation as a satellite and communications systems engineer. I have well over 25 years in Internet of Things, smart city, wireless networking, industrial control systems, penetration testing, as well as writing policy standards and requirements. I am the proud mother of 3 children and 2 grandkids, and I'm now located in beautiful Colorado, which is apropos because I love to snow ski and rock climb. And so, um, oh, I did it again. I can't believe this. I got to stop using the downward key on the keyboard and use the actual toggles here. So, apologies for that. Um, so, where did I get my start in cybersecurity? I worked at NASA in 1988 when this gentleman in the lower right hand corner launched the very first cyber attack known as the Morris worm. And consequently, myself and my manager, I'll just mention them by first name. They're gonna laugh. They're gonna know who they are. Michelle and my office mate Gary. We were the team of, actually there was one more to Ken. We were the team of 4 that responded to the very first cyber attack on the World Wide Web. So, hence, on that day, not only was the first incident response team born, which I was a part of, but the very first cyber attack against the internet, which affected the NASA network. So, obviously, at Ames Research Center, Goddard, and several other places, Berkeley Labs. There were very many locations across the country that were affected by this, and of course this person got basically a slap on the wrist for doing this, and you can read more about this. But that's how my career got started in cybersecurity. It was not a career choice; it was a career happening, and as a result, I guess you could say I was at the right place at the right time, and the whole cybersecurity profession was born out of this. And boy, did it sure make us look differently at the network, that something like this could be unleashed and really disrupt productivity, across an agency such as NASA. So, um, some of my background too. I worked as part of my com- company that I co-founded, Surveillance Grid. We did a lot of infrastructure deployment. In some of these pictures, you'll see a water treatment plant. You'll see a solar farm. You'll see an airport and a port. So we did a lot of work. So I'm very familiar with physical security within America's critical infrastructure. And of course, as you look at these pictures, you see that all this is technology on the edge, or what we call the Internet of Things, IoT. So many of our projects, as part of Surveillance Grid, we won industry awards, which is saying a lot for being a little company. We actually beat out some of the big players like Motorola, Microsoft, and several others in winning these awards. The city of Hollister, and you can read about this if you go to my LinkedIn. You can read about these projects. The city of Hollister, we got 2015 the Gold Award for Best Public Safety Project, and the King City in California. Both these cities are in California. In 2018, we won the Helen Putnam Award for Excellence, Best Public Safety Project, and like I said, these are very prestigious industry awards. And then after 2018, I packed up my bags in California, and I moved across the country to New York City. And what a change. I did grow up in the San Francisco Bay Area and was used to San Francisco. San Francisco is a little big city compared to New York City, which is a big, 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 big city. And it was a lot of fun. I was on an adventure in more ways than one, and uh, on the ground floor of what could be considered, one of one of America's really great endeavors to secure the largest city against cyber attacks. So the particular area I was responsible for was the Internet of Things. Of course, with my background, kind of all fit, right? Cybersecurity, Internet of Things. And so, why was this program so important to New York City? And this was what I was presented with. So, the problem statement: agencies were deploying unvetted IoT endpoint technology and connecting them to New York City networks, increasing the threat landscape. So, can you imagine if some of these sensors, transponders, cameras, uh, modems, you name it. These things, Wi-Fi, APs, access points. I got to be good about my acronyms here. APs are access points. They were just being deployed and had been being deployed across 67 plus agencies across the city of New York, and no one really knew how secure, if at all, they were. So my mission was my group, which I was employee number one in the IoT space, was to proactively secure and protect endpoint technology prior to their deployment on New York City networks. So when I got there, there was nothing. It was a blank slate. There was nothing. The team was new. New York City Cyber Command was just formed. We had, in my opinion, an excellent forward-thinking CISO in Jeff Brown, and the staff he surrounded himself with my two managers. Were excellent, Strat Gavis and Mike. Oh, I said the name. Anyway, we know who they are, and they were like the cream of the crop, and we were all gathered to New York City to basically set out on a quest to make New York City cyber resilient. So there were a lot of challenges, but specifically in my area, everyone had their own area. And the Big Apple in my area definitely had its challenges. So, of course, nothing existed like this before on such a massive scale. It's New York City. No other city in the United States, nor in Canada, and maybe the whole Western Hemisphere had a cyber command. Now, I know that the United States has a cyber command, and many states might have a cyber command, but not a city. It was something new, and it actually going forward and trying to do this in a city like New York City, it was big. Another challenge was headcount, hiring talent in the area of IoT. It was highly competitive at the time. If you think about where the job market was in 2018, there was a lot of competition with the enterprise space. They paid better than municipal wages. So we had to come up with sort of a tagline or a sell, right? A sell point as to why you want to come to New York City, get paid less, but take on this great opportunity. You'll be the first to do this. Nothing has been done like this. What a great cap in your resume this is, and it was, all the above, right? So we hired a lot of really good talent with that sales pitch. you, you want to call it that. And we really brought in some really outstanding people in all areas. Another challenge was having a catch mechanism for procurement of new and existing IoT technologies, because what was happening is it was the wild wild west. Everyone was just bringing in whatever it was they needed, putting it on their networks, and really not thinking about the cyber hygiene behind the solution. So we wanted to catch it in procurement. We wanted to be able to have visibility into the purchasing agreements, into the proofs of concepts, into the demos, right, of any technology, Internet of Things technologies that agencies were looking at. So also, agencies saw Cyber Command in general, but specifically my area, as a roadblock to the rapid deployment of technology. And another big one was the inconsistent legal agreements for purchasing of technologies. Many agencies, if not most of them, had their own legal agreements for purchasing technology. And what we wanted to do was we wanted one set of umbrella legal documents for the procurement of technologies within New York City. So, big challenge. Also, educating agencies on what exactly is IoT. Many didn't know, and so we were also on a education quest as to teaching them what is IoT, what is not considered IoT, and why you must vet your IoT prior to placing it on your network. And also the great unknown, a huge challenge here. What was and is the existing IoT footprint across the city? And most departments, if not all, did not know this. They had things on their networks that someone deployed 20, I don't know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. That person left. It was still on the network, and there was no support on it. There was no contractually the the licensing, everything about that solution had terminated years before. They, there was just a lot of dead weight, dead IoT weight technology on the city's various networks, and also one of the challenges is how do we capture that and then bring them into the process, right? Or help the agency terminate old technology and start bringing in new vetted technology. So, and also to get a clear inventory of the IoT footprint, be able to account for everything that's on the network. And then later on, how to automate the monitoring of and upgrading of IoT networks. And that's really, really important because as further security vulnerabilities are found, you want to make sure you want to keep up with your upgrades. As many cities have experienced, the city of Baltimore, for one, many years ago, actually, because they were not upgrading their technologies, they were ransomwared, and it was not good for the city. It cost them a lot of money. So we wanted to make sure that things like that didn't happen in New York City. The biggest challenge of all was that we were only given a small budget to do this. So basically a wing and a prayer. And but hey, I'm always up for a challenge, and I easily started just looking around. I had been familiar working with municipalities prior to this that there are grants available. And so I knew I had to find money as soon as possible. And with that, I became great friends with the grant writer for the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, known as the acronym DOIT. So if you hear me now moving forward talk about DOIT, that's what I'm talking about. She knew of a grant called the National Urban Area Security Initiative, or better known as the UOSI grant, under the Department of Homeland Security. So if you go to the DHS website and you type in UOSI, you will come up with this grant. It's a very little well-known grant that is for municipalities specifically to do security, cybersecurity, and physical security. It's a grant that is not really being used. If you go there now, you can see that there is a large percentage of the budget that has not been used, and it's almost the end of the year. So this is a grant that I used to further fund the growth in the area and all the different things I needed to do. So we, working with the grant writer, we came up with a budget, everything we needed to purchase in phases, the total sum of the grant, what we needed. Part of what I stood up there as well was a pen testing program. And it wasn't just pen testing of the device, it was the device management platform. We took apart the device to the board level, the communications protocols. It was everything. The mobile application. It was a very thorough testing. And this kind of shows you, the progress reports. When you go and get a grant, you just don't get money and you can say, oh, wow, now I have all this money and I can go out and spend it. You have to show them how you're spending it. And if you haven't spent part of it in the time frame you said you were going to spend it, you have to write in your next report why you haven't spent it and how and when you're going to spend it. And all this is an audit trail because they do audit, and so you have to be very careful and very diligent of your bookkeeping on your grants. The next aspect of this was I had a great foundation. The mayor at the time passed an executive order number 28, which established New York City Cyber Command, but even more importantly, also made my area IoT. It defined it as this is a cyber program within New York City Cyber Command to make IoT the IoT deployments in New York City more resilient. And so consequently, Cyber Command had governance at the cybersecurity level to and as a mandate to make the city resilient. And so as a pretense and looking at what that executive order did, I realized that I had 4 pillars that I identified as areas that I needed in order to be successful. I needed these 4 areas I needed to stand up these 4 areas and have set tactics and strategies within these 4 areas that I needed to execute on. So the first one was legal. As I already mentioned earlier, the city had multiple contracting vehicles, and my goal was to get legal to establish a set of legal documents for the procurement of all technology inside New York City. And I know it sounds like a big, huge thing, and and a challenge, but it was interesting when I first approached the legal department. They were they were ecstatic because that's something that they could buy into right away. They wanted consistency. They wanted it's so much easier from a legal perspective to manage a set of known documents instead of having every agency come up with their own. So that was huge. Legal, getting that's actually the first place I went to, because once I had legal on board, everything else sort of followed. Of course, then having a set of policies and standards and requirements for my area, which was the Internet of Things, and the industrial control system. So we wrote policies for the city so we can give them to vendors and manufacturers that were trying to sell IoT into the city. And then another area was procurement, where I needed that catch mechanism I mentioned earlier. I wanted to know when agencies were going to purchase technology so I could bring it into the process, right? And then the other is metrics. I I needed to measure my success. So so I could then, of course, ask for more resources. It, when you can show the mayor, when you can show your CISO that you're having all this success, this is what's going on, and you can measure it, they get behind you and will support you with the resources you need. So these were the important four pillars I identified to build on the foundation of the executive order. And just to note, also a huge note, because we had at the time a very forward thinking CISO by the name of Jeff Brown. And he really, when he started building this team, he set it out to build not just a team, but a close knit sort of family. So the reason Cyber Command was successful was because of the people. So let's talk about so hiring is important, obviously, in all this. So the first pillar is legal. So one of the things I set out to do was to establish a consistent legal purchasing agreements across all agencies for technology procurement. So I worked with a team of some highly excellent lawyers. I can't say enough about these technology lawyers or attorneys. I'll call them, instead of lawyers, attorneys that worked for the city. We They had an end user license agreement, but what I helped fold in was the purchasing of Internet of Things and industrial control systems. So we added language in there and we enhanced the existing end user license agreement. So it really became an encompassing uh, purchase agreement for not only on-prem software, firmware, hardware, but also the connected devices outside of the data centers. So the other thing, the second one we worked with is the cloud services agreement. So this covered all hosted services, including but not limited to software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. So both the end user license agreement and the cloud service agreement are the city's main licensing terms for the purchasing of these types of products, specifically IoT, because every IoT device has a cloud device management platform. Almost every, or some manufacturers offer on-prem solutions. So we were covering this in these agreements. So these agreements were enhanced to additionally include this, and which was a huge win. The next one was what was directly related to my area, which was the penetration testing agreement. And this was the city's licensing terms for pen testing of connected devices and their management platforms. And the fact that all vulnerabilities that were critical, high, medium, they had to be remediated prior to deployment on the city networks. Huge. This contractually bound every IoT manufacturer to a set of testing prior to not only being deployed, but if they refuse to remediate any of these critical high and medium vulnerabilities, they were not payment was withheld as well. So so this was huge. The second one, which also referred was in my area, specific to my area, was the agency risk acceptance agreement. This one we had to do because at first some agencies didn't want to play ball, and they were circumventing us and still deploying IoT solutions without any cybersecurity hygiene behind it. And so what we did was when they were doing that, then we'd send them this agreement. We send it to the head of the agency and the CISO, and we would ask them to sign it because if anything happened regarding that technology, if there was a breach as a result of uh, not vetting that technology prior to its deployment, they would be wholly responsible for it. So many didn't like this agreement, this legal contract, but it actually forced them to play ball or comply. And in the end, we never even really used it, but it was there just in case we needed it. The second pillar was the development of policies, standards, requirements, and processes. Right? How is it that an agency is going to go through this resiliency assessment, and what policies and standards are we going to give to the manufacturers that they can read and let us know if they adhere to them or they don't, right? One of the things we did too, I hired a brilliant person from North Carolina who would do our threat models. And based on those threat models, that's how we would come up with our testing scenarios for doing the various types of penetration testing and other types of uh, infiltration on those networks. So with that, we also developed reference architectures, made suggestions to further harden city networks when they deployed these onto their networks. So we would make recommendations, firewall recommendations, and other types of hardening to existing networks. Um, we offered guidance as well for the technology's use. And for example, I'm going to I'm going to use an interesting one where an agency was going to deploy some temperature sensors in Central Park to monitor the uh, temperature of the horses so they weren't overheating. But our concern was also that they were not doing this to the general public, right? And monitoring persons and their temperatures. Uh, this became extremely uh, an issue with personal information, right? During COVID. So we would offer guidance as well as how the technology should be used and strictly used for what it was stated to be used as, right? And and we also worked with the mayor's office and for a citywide strategy. They had their IoT strategist, an excellent person to work with, and we were integral as Cyber Command in helping the city come up with a citywide IoT strategy. So there were many things that we did to set a really what I call foundational layer of documents to support what we were trying to do. The next one was the third pillar was the procurement pillar, which we worked with the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, to integrate new technology procurement into the IoT cybersecurity process. So we wanted to know every time an agency was going to purchase an IoT solution, and we worked with the office to integrate also existing technology upgrades, contracts, and license renewal into the cybersecurity process. So we knew up front that we could catch new technology. That was easy, right? It's just every time an agency wanted to purchase something new, it would get kicked out. But we also needed to cover the fact that we knew there was existing things, and it would almost be impossible. And at the time, we didn't have the staff either to go and hunt down the existing footprint and test that. So what we would do is we would wait for the technology upgrade or license renewals, and that would also trigger an event, and it would get kicked out to us. So we had that covered, and that as we were doing this through procurement, we developed a portfolio of IoT tested solutions, which we shared with city agencies too, which helped as well because the city didn't have 16 different vendors in a certain area. It helped the city narrow it down. I know it's probably not good for for how do you say entrepreneurship, but it really helped the city not have it's just a alphabet soup of technologies in the same space, right? Like let's say 4G LTE modems, right? Where we would focus on two or three of the best ones instead of having a cornucopia of them. And also to integrate our IoT cybersecurity process into existing technology review intake process. So the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, do it, also had a intake process, and that was more focused on the data center. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to work with them since they already had an intake process and all the agencies knew that they had to go to this through this process for data centers. Now I wanted just to layer my stuff on there. And they were very receptive, and we worked together and we layered the IoT cybersecurity process into their existing technology review. And so that was a huge win. And this established also a checkpoint when cybersecurity was completed. It because OMB knew about the technology review intake process. They were also a part of this, and so was legal. So I was already, I was making that 360. I was creating that circle, that wheel. So I was just layering everything that I needed to do on top of what was existing, and that's a piece of advice I can give to anyone who's trying to do this is go out there and find what's there. Of course, you have to already define what it is you need to do. Go find what is there and then find out how you can integrate what you have to do on what's existing, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You don't want to go outside of what agencies, offices, and other areas are already used to doing. You want to integrate into what it is and enhance it. and work with them to better enhance what they're doing and roll your your requirements in there. So with that check pillar, then I moved on to the fourth pillar, which was metrics. How was I going to measure my success, right? And the UASI grant kept us honest. We had to document everything we spent and justify the spend down, right? So, so that kept, and we kept the metrics simple. Um, the number of vulnerabilities we found, the number of vulnerabilities remediated, the number of IoT devices tested, the quantity of each IoT device deployed by agencies. Now, you got to remember, this is New York City. So, very rarely did New York City buy 10 items, 10 IoT devices. No, you're talking in the thousands and sometimes in the tens of thousands, okay? So, and the number of IoT network security assessments we performed. So, how busy were we? How many of these did we perform a quarter? And so that was really important too, because we had a very lean, mean team in the sense like mean, not mean, but we a, a very highly set personnel that was highly skilled in their areas. So, and we also kept track of which agencies came through the program and tracked the trends and technologies being procured. This was important. You're like, why did you do that? This was important because it helped us to see the trends in how the city was consuming technology and where it was being consumed, and uh, how maybe we can take that and help other agencies also uh, solve some issues. Because if one agency is trying to solve an issue, chances are another agency is probably in the same boat and would like to see how they can also advance their mission and goals using technology. So this was important. Some of the key successes we had up front. I mean, this is huge. In between 2019 and 2022, we found 159 zero days. That's huge, highly huge. Um, and of we performed 67 IoT penetration tests. And when I say IoT penetration, I'm not just saying like we just took the device. I'm talking we took the device, we took it apart, we looked at the boards, we looked at the chipsets, we looked at the protocols, we looked at the communications between the device network that it communicated over, whether it was Zigbee, whether it was Wi-Fi, whether it was some other wireless technology, 4G LTE. We looked at all that. Every aspect of it was tested. We looked at the network architecture of the solution. That was that was also assessed. We looked at the data in transit and at rest, and how the system was being backed up. We did an assessment on the cloud implementation. It was a thorough test. And so when we say we remediated things, we remediated them on the entire solution, on the entire system. It wasn't just the device. You're talking the whole, as people say, the whole enchilada. But just imagine these 159 zero days. That's just 0 days. That doesn't include the other stuff, the other known vulnerabilities, right? That also existed, that were logged already in the CVE database, right? That manufacturers just weren't concerned about, but they release their products with those. So these are just the 0 days. And again, some of these solutions, agencies would buy 10,000, 20,000 of these devices, right? Um, and so it's huge, huge, a huge key metric right here. Um, the other thing I looked at too was, the value proposition, the qualitative successes, not just the quantitative, which is obviously, the remediation, how many we found, et cetera. But also what was this doing overall for the culture of New York City, New York City cybersecurity posture, right? Well, we reduced the risk to city agencies and their infrastructure, right? If we were finding all these things, obviously we were catching low hanging fruit, the stuff that was already known, but we were finding stuff that was unknown. And the fact that we were doing this in a timely manner, we basically did these assessments anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, max 2 months, depending on uh, how we always did a thorough testing, but basically how the technology communicated. There was several technologies that were very, for example, credit card processing technologies, right? For payment, I'm going to use parking meters as an example. So it involved more. So it took more time. But basically, even that we were able to do in a matter within 2 months. Um, we had a consistent process that anyone was, through writing our policies, procedures, requirements. We had our threat models. That was all available to everyone. So, including the vendor, the vendors were like, well, what are you doing? What are you going to do to our product? And so we had documents that were available to them so they know exactly what kind of testing they were going to be put through. So it was very consistent. We enhance the ability to direct, inspect, and measure compliance as recommended by industry best practices. So a lot of what we did too is we used existing NIST standards and CISA recommendations, and that was also part of the assessment process. And that would also give us alignment, right? It gave us a deeper understanding of agency workflows and priorities, as I mentioned earlier, that uh, other agencies could leverage, right? So it was huge for the city. This was an important program. And how did the program make um, New York City more resilient? Well, it enhanced, and here's another acronym I put there. I'll explain what NYC3 is. It stands for New York and then City Cyber Command. So NYC3 is New York City Cyber Command. And it enhanced our reputation across city agencies. Um, I won't mention which agency, but we tested a product for one of these agencies and we found all these things. And the CISO was so impressed that he actually went into his network, started pulling a bunch of stuff out and put it in a box and came over and visited me in our building and handed me the box and said, I need you to test this stuff. So it enhanced our reputation across city agencies. Uh, it transformed the way agencies viewed IoT security and buying IoT. It made them better customers, smart, aware customers of IoT. Um, my department was the only proactive cyber security testing of IoT devices or cloud-based management platforms and networks. As I mentioned, end to end. We were the only ones that looked at it proactively. In other words, we were testing these things prior to cities deploying them. And this greatly decreased the attack surface on a massive scale. So it's really important, many departments, agencies, CISOs, CIOs, CTOs, they focus on incident response and their incident response centers and their vulnerability management, and that's all great. You need that. That is part of the overall cyber resiliency. But if you're not proactively doing that, you're missing, I would say, more than half of making your environment more resilient. If you're not proactively catching low hanging fruit, if you're not proactively looking for 0-day vulnerabilities on things that you're connecting to the network, you are going to be setting yourself up for a massive failure somewhere at some point in time, because being proactive is should be top of mind. And the sad part about security and physical security, whether it's physical security or cybersecurity or just security in general, it is reactive. Um, and rarely is it ever proactive. So the fact that New York City Cyber Command stood up a proactive arm was a very forward thinking. And if you're only thinking reactively, which is the other areas I mentioned, it's already too late. Uh, they've already infiltrated your network. They're already in there, and now you're just scrambling. So the key is really to lock yourself down, to make sure that your front doors and your back doors, that they're locked, and your windows. You don't want to let them in. The goal is not to let them in, and not to scramble after they're already in. So my 2 cents after doing this on such a massive scale. So overall, it increased the security posture of IoT by performing, threat models and end-to-end network security assessments, by measuring cyber resiliency against standards, as I mentioned, the NIST cybersecurity framework, 800-213, which I want to mention. We had our policies and standards already. We were already ahead of NIST. uh, so much so that they invited me to be part of the actual review of 800-213, because we already had that, especially for municipalities. 800-213 actually covers a more broader stroke, but what we did inside New York City was basically focused on a cybersecurity framework for municipalities. So with that, we had a lot of success, and we, of course, felt the pinch during COVID. uh, One of the things I want to mention too is I mentioned earlier that our CISO is very forward thinking. Uh, when March 13th, 2020 hit, and all agencies in New York were told to go home and work from home, Cyber Command was the only one where we picked up our laptops, went home, connected them, and we were up and running. It was that easy. Other agencies weren't as, I would say the majority of the agencies were not set up for that. So then, Cyber Command took on a new role now in helping other agencies work and their employees work remotely. But we were able to do that right from the get-go. That following Monday, that was on a Friday, that following Monday, we were working from home seamlessly as if we were in the office. So you, what was done in New York City should really become a case study in municipal cybersecurity. So some of the things we tested, this was, as I said earlier, this presentation I gave to the Denver Police Department and the United States Secret Service. here based out of the Denver field office. We tested the Motorola next generation portable radios, the TT911 system, 511 system, and its other components, 311, etc. We tested the IDEMIA digital fingerprinting system, which many agencies across New York City use. The Haas vehicle tracking GPS transponder system. We did that for several agencies that were using them, from tracking first responder vehicles to school buses to snowplows, so on and so forth. During COVID, the Ententi ankle monitoring devices, because of COVID, they were releasing uh, uh, incarcerated people out, but they wanted ways to track them. So these devices were brought in. My team had a lot of fun with this because they actually put on the devices. And as we were testing, when I tell you we were testing, we tested them live, so it was a lot of fun. We tested the Axon and Motorola WatchGuard body camera systems for several agencies. Um, and then this is just a small sample of what was tested. Uh, and here, so we proactively secured on a massive scale the IoT routers, modems, Board of Elections, not just for the city of New York, but the state actually would give us things as well. For the DOP is the Department of Parole, and that was for New York. And MOCJ is the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, so that's at the city level. Those were the ankle monitoring bracelets. For the fire department, router modems for vehicles and station houses. For the fire department, the Phase 2 Channel 16 radio, they were upgrading their radios. Those were tested. GPS transponder locators for the entire fleet, FDNY. Lots of cars. NYPD, the next gen radios. The TLC is the Taxi and Limousine Commission, which is actually another policing arm within the city of New York. And these are body worn cameras. And this is the from the various manufacturers. The Department of Transportation, we tested the traffic light controller system, routers and modems, as well as parking meters. And the Department of Education, again, transponders, locators for their vehicles. And the Department of Sanitation, again, wireless routers, modems for the snowplow fleet and the sanitation fleet. So that tells you the quantity of that they were purchasing. I mean, these were multi-million dollars, if not $100 million contracts with these manufacturers, right? So, so our wins, our wins were huge. One of the things that happened as a result of our process was agencies started to realize that cybersecurity should be part of the RFP, RFI process. So, in the writing of RFP, RFIs, they would come to us to place IoT requirements, our policy. Well, we're in our requirements, in our policies and standards, and make that part of the RFP, RFI process. One of the agencies that did that, the first one, which is a huge win because it's one of New York City's largest agency and the second largest department in the country, which was the Department of Transportation for the city of New York. They started including us in their RFP, RFI process. So that's a huge win. When you can write cybersecurity into the RFP, RFI process, many of the what I call bottom feeder uh, IoT they'll drop off because they won't be able to meet the requirements, right? You're gonna what you're gonna wind up with is sound companies bidding uh, for these contracts, and agencies started to come to us as subject matter experts, asking us, hey, we're looking to buy, this solution. Have you done this before? Have you tested one? Uh, can we look at it? And now, while we wouldn't make any recommendations, we wouldn't say we recommend vendor X over vendor Y. We would just say that this vendor X passed our stringent requirements. They passed our testing and they remediated everything we told them to remediate. And so they started coming to us in that capacity, which was a huge win. We started to do continuous education to all the agencies were invited, all the CISOs, CIOs, staff, supporting staff, and we had these quarterly, and we presented the technologies we tested, and legal was part of this. They came to these quarterly reviews and they would share updates to the legal agreements. And procurement was part of that. And they would also, talk about the any new procurement requirements, changes. And this would bring all the agencies up to date on as well as we brought agencies up to date on any known vulnerabilities and technologies. So this considerably reduced the IoT threat landscape across New York City on a massive scale. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, every major city in this country should have something like this, and or be doing something like this. Even if you have to outsource it. I know you say, oh, the money's not there, but I just showed you a grant that you could leverage where it's hardly being used, where you can go ask for, 2 million and start a program in your city to help proactively secure technology prior to it being deployed on your network. So with that, I'm going to say I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I hope that uh, this helped you in any way to see the need to secure IoT in America's largest city, and how New York City went about doing this. This really should be, as I mentioned, a case study, a blueprint for how to establish a cybersecurity program like this in your city. It can be done, and it with this as your foundation, I think you have enough pieces that you can go now and ask for this kind of support within your city. And I would say every large city in America should have this, and every medium-sized city. So, of course, the Miamis, the Chicagos, the Los Angeleses, the San Francisco, Seattle, um, Atlanta, DC, Baltimore, definitely cities like that should have it. But even the smaller cities, such as maybe Reno, Nevada, Sacramento, California, Albany, New York, Buffalo, New York. This There's no reason, and if you can, if you're finding that it's difficult, form partnerships with other cities and share the resources to do this. But cities should not be deploying IoT without doing proactive cybersecurity hygiene. Also, I just came from the International Association of Chief of Police show, which was in Denver this last Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, And now all these IoT devices are being integrated with artificial intelligence. And this is really uh, a two-edged sword in the in respect that there's good, but there's a lot of bad as well, right? You gotta most of these companies that had these IoT devices that would be put on police department networks, consequently city networks, would were not really thinking about, well, most of them weren't even thinking about cybersecurity hygiene in the first place. But then now they've added AI to it, potentially opening up more doors, both backdoor and otherwise, to their networks. And so I'm actually going to do a presentation. I'm a keynote speaker at this Nevada, for the University of Nevada, Reno, and the state of Nevada Cyber Conference next month. And I'm going to be doing a presentation on critical infrastructure and artificial intelligence. So I'll bring that to present here at the Grid podcast, because I believe that the integration of artificial intelligence and IoT and inside industrial control systems, inside operational technology systems, if you're not really careful, you're actually introducing more uh, threat vectors into your environment. So, with that said, please join us next week, October 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, 2 Mountain, and 1 Pacific. Our guest will be control system cyber expert Joe Weiss. He's an international authority on cybersecurity, control systems, and system security. You definitely don't want to miss this podcast, where Joe will weigh in on cybersecurity, science, technology, uh, and emerging threats, and more. So, to our Grid Warrior audience, thank you for watching. And until next time, thank you. Actually, I'm going to look over at before I sign off, at the into the chat. I want to welcome Greg and David. Thank you for joining, and I hope this was something that definitely brought to your awareness the need to secure IoT in America's largest city. So, with that, uh, take care, and until next week, have a great week.